Mr. Speaker, the Marape Rosso government is a transparent government. We want to keep our people informed of economic developments. As in almost every parliamentary session since assuming the humbling office as Treasurer, I want to update our people on recent economic developments. Today I want to give some economic updates since my last discussion of the Supplementary Budget and my EFO in our August session. Broadly, the domestic economic situation appears to have improved, but the international economic situation seems to be getting worse, with key countries likely to head into recession next year. This will make a more difficult 2023 budget. As members of this House, an understanding of these international pressures can help as we prepare to consider the 2023 budget in our next parliamentary session. On international economic developments, in my statement to Parliament in August, I noted that the outlook for the global economy had moved to, and I quote, gloomy and more uncertain. Unfortunately, the global economic outlook has become much worse over the last 2 months. The international changes are well beyond the control of a country such as ours, where our economy accounts for just 0.03% or 0.03 of the world economy. PNG's economy will be buffeted by these winds of the global economy in the same way as a small raft in a very large storm. Many now expect major economies will move back into a global recession next year. The International Monetary Fund released their updated outlook overnight for the global economy just yesterday. Let me share a few quotes from the IMF chief economist. The 3 largest economies of the US, Europe, and China will continue to stall. For many people, 2023 will feel like a recession. And then the IMF continues and states the worst is yet to come. There are 3 main reasons for this depressing international news. The first is ongoing supply chain shortages stemming from COVID-19, especially from the continuing lockdowns in China. The second is the ongoing and troubling Ukraine-Russian war. I think there are a few here that can remember the fears of a nuclear confrontation. The recent words by US President Biden talking of the most risky nuclear situation since the 1962 Cuban crises, missile crises, is indeed a cause for concern. The third economic threat is global inflation. Central banks around the world are rapidly increasing interest rates, as most of you are aware. For example, in the US, inflation has increased from 1.3% in 2020 to current estimates of 8.2%. In response, the Federal Reserve, the US Federal Reserve, equivalent to our central bank, has lifted interest rates from essentially 0% to now 3%. Further increases are considered very likely until U.S. prices start falling in response to the economy slowing, even if it means the U.S. will be going into a recession. Mr. Speaker, this has significant implications for PNG. First, our export markets will be affected. There will be less opportunities for our coffee, our cocoa in U.S. markets. Second, our international interest costs will increase, putting some pressures on our budget. And third, an economic slowdown will put downward pressure on oil prices. Despite a small bounce in recent weeks, the WTI crude oil price is lower than at the time of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and oil futures say it will fall further. While a fall in oil prices is good for many PNG families, it also means less resource revenues for our 2023 budget. As we designed the 2022 supplementary budget with nearly $1.2 billion in additional expenditures, we understood that the boom in oil revenues was only going to be temporary. We did not want to repeat the tragic budgetary mistakes of 2014 of spending big before revenues were received. Instead, we spent 2/3 of that temporary bonus in helping pay down debts and arrears. We designed the supplementary budget to also provide temporary assistance to households to deal with increased imported cost pressures. All increased expenditures were matched by increased revenues as we continue on the path of budget repair. This was responsible, balanced, caring management of our national budget and our economy. So as we prepare for our 2023 budget, we must understand that the global headwinds have become much more difficult than even 2 months ago. And the ongoing fall in oil prices means that the huge resource revenue bonus in 2022 was indeed just temporary. On our PNG domestic economy, Mr. Speaker, in stark contrast to the bad news on the international economy, there continues to be good news on our local economy. The latest released by the central bank, our central bank, estimates PNG's inflation rate will be 6% this year, slightly below our MAIFO figure of 6.2%. This is already below PNG's long-term average inflation rate of 6.8%. Importantly, BPNG considers inflation will fall further to only 5% next year and 4% in 2024. PNG's foreign exchange reserves are at a historic high. They are now estimated to exceed 14 billion kina by the end of this year, well up from the 12 billion estimated at MAIFO. And I continue to believe that more of these reserves should go to our businesses to help clear foreign exchange backlogs and help support our economy. The recent World Bank report on our economy estimates real growth across 2021 and 2022 will reach a combined 5%. This exactly matches the Treasury combined estimate. It is also very similar to the IMF estimate that strong real growth rates are returning to our country. These are the facts. There is good news about the ongoing strength of our PNG economy, and as stated by our Prime Minister when commenting on the recent positive World Bank report on our economy, this more balanced approach to national development, a people-first approach that gives priority to and encourages our human resources, is the foundation for the success so far of our reform program. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Misinformation campaigns. When talking to the actual facts of the PNG economy, can I express today my dismay at the misinformation being spread by some opposite and on social media on the actual state of our economy. The falsehoods are extraordinary, deliberate lies. Let me take a couple of examples. Somebody from the opposite side described the 2022 supplementary budget as a turns out the lights budget with ridiculous cost cutting and even suggesting a 100% cut in DSIP. Just extraordinary lies. Mr. Speaker, the 2022 supplementary budget, in fact, turned on the lights and continued to shine on the path of budget repair, jobs going forward. There was an increase in expenditure of 1,198 million, matched fully by an increase in revenues. How can anyone in their right mind describe an increase of nearly 1.2 billion kina in expenditure as cost-cutting? How is this turning out the lights? There was a 20% increase in DSIP, back to 10 million kina per electorate and 3 million kina for the 7 new electorates. We have already distributed around 8 to 10 million kina per electorate and trying to catch up on those that have received less. These are distributed funds, and suggestions that they will be cut are simply shameless lies from someone in the opposition. We also have extraordinary language in the social media, including so-called think tanks, claiming our economy is in crises, claiming hyperinflation, our foreign exchange reserves are at an all-time low, and even claiming our currency has collapsed. Mr. Speaker, these are just false and untrue lies. Why are people trying to talk down the economy? What are their motives? Why do they ignore the facts? The growth in our non-resource economy, that part of the economy that is responsible for providing almost all of our people's livelihoods, is very strong. 4.4% growth in real terms this year and 4.8% projected next year. As I previously stated, the fact is that our economy has grown to over 100 billion kina. This is a 27.6 billion kina increase in our economy over the last 2 years. By far the largest increase in our country's history. The fact is that inflation is well below that of other low to middle income countries. It is lower than inflation was in 2016, and it is lower than PNG's long-term average inflation rate of 6.8%. Our foreign exchange reserves are at an all-time high at over 14 billion kina, not a low. Our currency has stayed steady against the US dollar and risen against almost all other global currencies as a result. When we debate important matters of public policy, whether it be in this House or with our people, on social media or press releases, let us be honest enough to deal with the facts. Inventing and spreading lies disrespects the proud office that each of us hold. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, we inherited a legacy of a massive increase in debt from 8 to 40 billion kina. We inherited a legacy of uncontrolled budget deficits. The global COVID-19 pandemic made things so much worse. The Marape Rosso government has stayed the course of budget repair. We protected the budget to protect our economy. We have had a major reduction in our budget deficits over the last 2 years, and these reductions will continue. We will base our decision on facts, not on the lies promoted by some in social media and some sitting opposite. As the global economy is in very difficult times, there will be a need for some difficult decisions. So not everyone may get the project that they want next year. Not everyone may get the tax cuts that they think they deserve. But I want to assure this House and the people of this country, we will try our very best to be fair and equitable. We must also remember the importance of building a robust, sustainable, equitable economy. And we must continue to get our house in order to protect our children's future. I have always said that it would take years to achieve this. We are working very hard to get our economy back to a surplus by 2027 and start repaying debt. This is the wider strategic context for the forthcoming 2023 budget. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.